But I do like to start on time, so that's what I am going to do. So, all right. Let's share this right here.
Go to front.
Very good. All right. So, there we go. Thanks for your patience here. I love how technical difference. It's like parenting. You have to act like you know what you're doing. Even if you don't know what you are doing, you have to act like that at all times. So here we go. All right, the best ways to end tantrums. You can see me okay and hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. All right. So I'm really having some technical things. So you are here because you're exhausted from the meltdowns, frustrated because ignoring tantrums isn't working, and worried that the tantrums will get worse. So after this webinar, you will know how to stop tantrums before they begin. And enjoy a more peaceful home, hopefully, right? Be able to take your kids with you places when you can take them places. So let's talk about why we're having so many problems. Let's go here. All right. You can see the screen? Okay. So the reason that I had so many problems is because this is the advice that's out there. And this is what I was looking for when I was struggling. So the CDC will tell you ignoring is usually the most effective way to deal with tantrums. And then you have Kids Health Organization. And they say if the tantrum happens after your child is told to do something he doesn't want to do, it's best to ignore it. And then you have when should I call the doctor? Talk to the doctor if the tantrums have become more frequent, if your child seems very disagreeable or argues a lot, hardly ever cooperates. Wow, you're supposed to call the doctor. That's pretty intense. So Parents Magazine, and some of the stuff is great. You know, really it is. Parents Magazine says try ignoring. So far you have ignore, ignore, ignore. They even say walk out of the room and set a timer for a few minutes and then check on your kid. And they tell you to handle aggressive behavior immediately. So I agree with that. So if your child starts hitting or kicking or biting or throwing during a meltdown, you have to stop immediately, remove your child from the situation. But then they say save timeouts for harmful behavior. So this was crazy making for me because I kind of thought hitting and kicking and biting was harmful. Right now you have refrain from yelling. And you're supposed to think that focus on thinking, you know, being empathetic towards your child. They're feeling frustrated, they're feeling sad, and that might help you deal with a tantrum. Okay, so now we also have Linda Pearson. She's a nurse practitioner. She wrote The Discipline Miracle, and she says, let your kids get the anger out, let it out, which I think you should do. And she goes on to say, I'm a big believer in this approach because children vent in a non-destructive way. They get their feelings out, but then she goes on to say they pull themselves together and they regain self-control without engaging in a yelling match or a battle of wills with you. That didn't happen to me. Like I was letting the tantrum happen, but I was always, my kids were always engaging with me. It was always a battle of the wills. And then you have in some cases give in to the tantrum. Okay, when do you give in? So this person says, well, you might give in if your child wants to hear, this is old, hear the tape over and over again in the car. Well, I think that's kindness to let your kid do that. So I just want to show you what's here and why this was so crazy making for me and why I gathered as much information as I could to show you what's out there. So create a distraction. You have a PhD, Ray Levy, telling you, he's a psychologist. The best thing to do is create a distraction. So this is what he tells you. If you have a tantrum in a store, if your kid wants the cereal that they want, Distract them. Say, hey, we need some ice cream. Want to help me pick a flavor? That sounds great. And if that works, great. One time that would work for me, if that. Another one is, and this is very big across the internet, is give your child a hug when they're having a tantrum. But Dr. Levy tells you not a cuddly hug, a firm hug. So this is baffling because I'm thinking, well, what kind of hug? Am I giving this firm bear hug? And he says it makes your child feel that they're cared about, even if you don't agree with their behavior. So the implication is that my child is now questioning whether or not I care about him. Does that make sense to you? So this is very crazy making. It was for me. So we're going to go all the way down. Now you have Alan Kasdan, who's a PhD. He's professor of psychology at Yale and psychiatry, child psychiatry. And this sound, it's fine. He says, look, if you're in a public place, your kid has a meltdown, he tells you, it's right here. He says, suck it up. And you actually should plaster a little Mona Lisa smile on your face and pretend everything is great. Now that might work sometimes. So what he says here, in a public place with a tantrum, don't worry about handling your kid's meltdown. Other people, you stay calm so other people say, that is a good mom. So this is just very confusing for me. And it goes all the way down. And I wanted to gather this for you because this is why you're having problems. It's why I was having so many problems. There's so much information. Now we have Love and Logic. Are you familiar with Love and Logic? So Love and Logic is very popular and they're great. I mean, Love and Logic's terrific. They have the phrase, I love you too much to let you tantrum. It's great. They do a lot of great stuff, Love and Logic, the guy who started that. But this is what he'll tell you how to do, how to handle a tantrum in a public place. So this is one of my favorites. So are you with me? I want to make sure. So the Randy is toddling along with his mommy in the grocery store. And she is a really smart mom because she doesn't waste time and energy warning him, going, don't touch this, hurry up, keep up with me, you're going to get in trouble, stop it. Instead, she glances out of the corner of her eye, she keeps walking, and she finds a place just out of sight where she can watch him. He can't see her, but she can see him. So giggling, she watches him as he suddenly realizes he is lost. And he looks around, he doesn't see his mom. And he panics a little, and he begins to run down the aisle. He turns the corner, and Mom smiles and says, it's good to see you. And Randy starts to learn, I better keep up with Mom. So when I read this, I think, first of all, I would never want a parent to make their kid feel scared that your mom left, right? So this is very assumptive. You assume that the kid gets the message, I better keep up with Mom. This is why all the problems that you're having have nothing to do with you. I mean, they're not your fault. So the last one, second to last one here, is also Love and Logic, which has great things. But this is now, they want you parents to have a sense of humor, which I do too. Lighten up. So now you're at the market, and it goes down to a dad. He says, so they say some parents follow a surefire strategy for making themselves miserable. They get angry and frustrated. And they say things like, stop acting that way, we're going home, you're gonna get it. So Love and Logic parents, they aren't afraid to have some fun. So now this father does this. He looks at the child who's screaming because she wants a candy bar. And dad says, nice tantrum, but I think you're losing your touch. And now he goes on to have a tantrum in the store. And now the daughter's embarrassed and she says, stop it, Daddy. When I was reading this, I just went, no wonder I even have a job, because what do? Do you humor your kid? What do you do? So The last thing is about the brain. And this is a website that tells you to restore emotional balance and let your child have the tantrum. And this is my final thing here, is hugging can activate the calming system in his body and triggers another feel-good chemical called oxytocin. Sometimes positive words such as, I know you're upset, or I'm sorry that you're hurt, are enough to let your kiddo feel safe and understood. There's an implication that your child doesn't feel safe. They're in your home with loving parents. They're just having a tantrum because you said no. And it tells you you should never punish, a last resort timeout. Okay. Do you understand why there's all these messages out there? Do I humor? Do I cajole? So this is your toddler. Okay. So the toddler years 0 to 3 years old. Toddler tantrum. Your little kid comes into the world and he's king. You wait on him, you dote on him, he doesn't have to do anything. And then at about 17 months, 18 months, you get the little guy who's raging because his brain sees the cookie jar and he sees that he wants to get it, but his body, he can't, right? He's still growing, he's developing. He can't get there. He's frustrated, right? He says, I want orange juice. You give him orange juice. He knocks it off the high chair. You can't please him. These are normal. That's why they call it the terrible twos. Okay? So perfectly normal. Tantrums are part of growth. All right. So I tell my clients the really simple thing to do is to have the tantrum place. They love it because it works. You have a tantrum place for your kids. They get to scream and yell in this very special, wonderful place. I'm going to finish the slides, then we're going to open it up for you to ask whatever you want to ask. All right. So can you stop a tantrum before it begins? Well, sometimes. So you're going to know exactly what to do before the tantrum begins, but it's up to your child whether they're going to stop it or not, because they have minds of their own. But you're going to know exactly what to do before that tantrum begins. You're going to have a plan. That's the tantrum place. So you're going to know, I'm about to turn that iPad off. I know what's going to happen, possibly. Okay. And I'm going to tell my 2.5-year-old, my 3-year-old, I'm going to take them to their tantrum place. I have a plan. When I go to the store, my kid starts screaming. What am I going to do? I'm going to take him back to the car. He gets to scream in the car seat. He gets to rail in there. We might go back in, we might not. I'm going to halt. This is my favorite for the grown-ups, for you, Mom. You have to be aware of yourself and where you are at. Are you hungry? Are you anxious? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you in this space? Because anxiety is one of the most contagious of emotions. Calm is also very contagious. So you have to be aware of yourself. You're a mirror for your kid. We hear that all the time. You model for your kids. They pick up on your energy. Those things are great to know, but you still need a solution for the actual tantrum, the tantrum place. And your self-awareness is important. You have to be flexible. You have to be. This is a big problem with a lot of the moms, or some of the moms that I coach. Bedtime, I want it this way. I want it this way. I needed to go to the market at this time. And there's a lot of stress right now. You have to be flexible. Maybe your child can't pay attention on Zoom school. Maybe it's time to just say, you know what? It ain't working today. You have to be flexible with whatever the plan is. So containment versus correction. So if you have a child, so I have some people who are listening, if you have a child that's under 3, You're not going to correct behavior. You're going to contain behavior. So you're containing versus correcting or disciplining. So you have to be authoritative, not authoritarian, which is cruel, but authoritative sounds like I expect you to, I want you to, I need you to, you need to go to your tantrum place now. Okay. You're setting disciplinary precedents with a young age. You're teaching disciplinary precedents. You're not disciplining that little one. All right. Consistency and communication for the little one. You're going to every time they're going to have a meltdown, you're taking them to their tantrum place. You're going to be consistent with that. You're going to communicate. That's where they're going. All right. So the tantrum place, developmentally appropriate method to manage tantrums. So your children get to learn to manage their emotions, and they have them too. Because you want them to have their voices. You want them to have all those emotions. You want them to control them. Family peace is restored. It is never presented as punishment, ever. It's not a punishment. All right. So you're going to take the kids. You're going to have a plan. Always have a plan. You're going to the relatives. All right. What if X or Y or Z? Have a plan. That helps you stay relaxed. You're always teaching your kids 24/7. You're always teaching your values 24/7, right? And how you live by example. You're always teaching. You're not teaching during a meltdown though. Have a plan B. So you pre-plan, have a plan B. All right. So big question is, what if my kid doesn't stay in the tantrum place? What if he doesn't stay there? Kids have minds of their own. You can't force them to stay there. When they're under 3, you just take them back. But kids who are 3 and over, that's when you can say, you need to stay in your tantrum place when you're yelling. And when you stay there until you're finished yelling, you can watch whatever you want to watch or whatever you have decided that your kid gets to watch. Okay. You don't stay there, then we don't get to watch it. It's not presented, it's not a threat. If you don't stay there, it's not that. It's a statement. It's up to them. What if he won't go? So if you have a kid 3 or older, they won't go to the tantrum place. They have minds of their own. So what do? Say, well, you know what? I can't force you to go. You're 6. You're too big for me to pick you up. So when I have to take you there, or when you don't go when I tell you to, then we can't watch that show you wanted to watch. And then we have to have early bedtime. It's up to you. All right. So you can unmute, right? You should be able to do that. So I have a lot of familiar people, a lot of familiar faces. Can you unmute yourselves? Are you able to do that? Let me see. Should be able to. Okay. You can't. Oh, let's see. What did I do to you? What did I do? All right. All right. We have to be able to unmute. There we go. All right. Sometimes I do that when I have a lot in the background. You should be able to unmute now. All right, great. Okay. So, all right. So I go through these. Let me stop the sharing right now. Okay. I've learned when I'm doing these webinars, I just want to go through the points because you have questions. But if I don't go through the points, then some of the times they get answered, sometimes they don't. So I got Margie on here. Wow, that's so great. What a nice surprise. All right. So talk to me. Questions. This is your time right now.
I just logged in because I got the link late, so I don't have any
Yes,
questions.
you and everybody got the link late.
Oh, okay.
So I have, and I apologize for that.
It's okay.
Well, yeah, this is how life shows up sometimes, even working with people that are helping me to arrange my links. So anyway, so here we are. You're here. You're the people meant to be here. So we're talking about tantrums, and I'm going to actually, well, you know what, I'll keep this recording going, but I have other people, doesn't matter. So let's open this up to whatever questions you have about anything. How does that sound? All right. So about tantrums, anything parenting, whatever it is. About the let's start with the tantrum place. So I know I have a couple people here that are new with me and just getting started, just working on leadership speech. Some of you remember that. I want you to, I expect you to, I need you to. But if any questions first about the actual tantrum place. No. All right. So I know you have yours is too big for the tantrum place now. So very much too big.
I need a tantrum place.
I know that. So I want to make sure I give you the time. So sometimes I know it takes a little while to get warmed up or someone doesn't want, and you can just put something in the chat if that makes you feel more comfortable too, if you're shy. The tantrum place itself is incredibly successful when it's executed well. And this is not rocket science. It's about parents, after everything I showed, showing you, that's why I like to go through what's on the internet, what's out there in the parenting books from brilliant people, psychologists, psychiatrists. There's just so many different messages. I was reading magazines and books like Thomas Gordon's Parent Effectiveness Training and a Child's Self-Esteem and How to Talk So Your Kids Will Listen, which are wonderful. It was just, there was so much out there. One week I would do something and then I'd feel guilty that I didn't do another thing that was in a magazine or I got from somebody. And a lot of the things, I just was paralyzed to really paralyzed to do any kind of telling my kid what to do. I was really afraid I was going to mess him up. I was so neurotic about it. I was very, very anxious. And most of the moms I have are very, very anxious. And that's not your fault. It's really because there's so much out there. It's like, well, and all of those people that I looked at, no one said, there was no one, not one expert out there that said, this is what you do, other than how to understand your child, how to empathize with them. And if that were working really well right now, I don't think you'd be on here, do you? I mean, is that working for you? Can I get a hello from anybody? Right, and I'm not, by the way, I love it. That's why I tell parents, I'm a parent coach who wants to help you to let your kids have their own voice and follow your directions the first time.
Yeah, my problem with all those books, it seemed like everything was really time consuming that I couldn't do every moment of the day with my kids. I couldn't stop and get down on their level every time I was in a grocery store or in the bank or, and so that's ultimately what brought me to you.
Well, I appreciate that. I did that too, where I would get down on the level and, yeah. It's what I learned, and there's great parenting experts that, for some of you, Dr. Leonard Sachs, Dr. John Rosemond, psychologist John Rosemond for leadership. And I love, Brene Brown. There's people I pull from all the best from empathy. And then I pull from who I think the best are for leadership. How do you expect when you're always at your kid's level for them to respect you or look up to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I know how difficult, it was very difficult for me to extricate myself from that. Very, very hard. I remember the first time I gave my youngest son a consequence. I have stepkids that are older. But when I gave when he was 4, I cried because I was so afraid I sent my son to his room for something. And I really fell apart. Like I thought, how could I do that? To his beautiful room that had pictures of the giving tree. So this was a beautiful room, which I know your kids have beautiful rooms, but I had an expert say that's traumatizing. And I have to say what I learned from raising right? Our teenager who's at home now, and from coaching other moms, is it's actually the opposite. It wasn't traumatizing. It actually made my son relax and feel safe and know that he could trust my word. See, consequences have to be predictable. So right now, parents are all over the place. I'm not giving you the Xbox. I'm giving you the Xbox. You can't have it now. Just take it.
Yeah.
And you can't have an iPhone. Oh my gosh, I feel bad because your friends have it and it's COVID and you have to and you're 11, but here, you shouldn't have media in the room because it's bad, but no one tells you how to take it out. But then I feel bad because I don't want you to hate me, because I don't want you to be damaged psychologically, because you'll end up on a therapist couch like me. This is what's going on. I'm just telling you like it is. All those things they're great. They sound great. They just weren't working for me. So I said, well, okay, well, how can we get the best of all the empathy? So you can look at your child and say, I hear you. I know that you really want that. I love you too much to let you destroy the furniture in this house. Sit down. I want to hear what's going on with you. All right. You've told me. Now I expect you to go to your room. Now it's time to give me the Xbox. Now it's time to, why you don't get the iPhone? Why? Because your father and I, or I decided it's not best for you. I understand you're upset. I would be too if I were your age. This conversation is over. See, we don't have permission to do that. We don't have permission to do that. But the other thing is exhausting children. How do you feel? We're taking their emotional temperatures. I talk about that a lot, right, Savannah, all the time. So I want to make sure this is clear. Some of you have never met me. Some of you know me really well, have worked with me for a while. I'd like to hear from you. Do you have questions? Is this making sense? Do you disagree? This is your time right now. Please take it.
I just want to ask, so where is the good kind of place that you're talking about, or a tantrum spot? Not so you're saying the bedroom is good?
Here's the thing. I recommend when a tantrum place, I recommend it's a bathroom.
Okay.
A smaller space. It depends on your home. If you have a toddler, right, under 3, sometimes you can just have a tantrum rug. And that's where they have to go to have the meltdown. But for you, and you're not doing this today, right? Yeah. You're right. You're not doing this today. So, yeah. And I appreciate that you're here. So I do suggest that it's the bathroom. It can be the bedroom, but I really think it's a small space. And again, it's not a punishment. Never presented as punishment.
Okay.
Ever, because what the point of that is, and kids have been allowed to scream, right? All that parenting advice that I showed you is let them scream. Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, it's not in their best interest to scream anywhere. And then we wonder why they're screaming at school or not. I mean, you want them to be able to let out their feelings, right? Of course. But you want them to start taking responsibility. And that's the beginning. When you go to your tantrum place, you're saying, you know what? You get to be real upset right now. But you have to take responsibility for your feelings and not dominate the house with your feelings. That's the beginning of teaching children to be responsible, to take personal responsibility, which is what a lot of kids don't even know how to do right now. You know, let's not get to even teenagers and young adults who are. So yes, so that's what I suggest. It depends on the setup in your home, but you're not banishing your child to the basement. This is, and I know some parents hear it like that. Oh my gosh, she wants me to banish the child to the basement and put them outside and never. This is about letting your kids have their feelings, but not indulging their feelings.
Yeah.
See, when you give your kid the floor for 2 hours in your living room, do they look happy?
No one's happy.
No.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. When parents have I want to say when parents have an experience, and even if you have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and I do have some parents, they've been a little hesitant to try some of this. And I know it's scary. It is scary because you don't have a guarantee. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
When a parent is willing to say, you know something, you've run the show for a while and I'm sorry. That was my fault. But now this is what's happening. And I understand this is hard to change. You've been allowed to destroy property in the home. Now, I know that there's all different kinds of, there's situations we all know that are beyond what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if a child by the way, if you have a kid who's behaving well at school, generally, not a behavior problem. You don't get calls right and left from the principal. Let me ask you, for any of you who have difficult kids right now, kids that are melting down, put in the chat if you're comfortable or speak up. Are they problems? Are you getting calls from other parents or from when kids were in school, were you getting calls? Are other parents saying your kid's really a problem?
Oh.
So if you feel comfortable this chat should be open, right? So if you feel comfortable if you want to say, if you want to in the chat, if you're not so comfortable to speak up, but what I'm saying is that if you're not getting reports that, wow, your kid is tantruming at school, or the teacher saying, wow, on Zoom, wow, your kid just flipped me off, and what does that tell you? What does it tell you if you're not getting bad reports from the school about behavior, or from the neighbor, or from the play date with your fully masked child playing outside and you're not getting, what does that tell you if you're having problems with your child?
That you're the problem?
Correct. And that's really good news. And I know some moms say, oh, I did. It is good news. That means you get to change. You get to do something differently. So when a parent says, when I'm doing an assessment and I say, well, how's your kid at school? Well, they're a little behind on the math. But I said, well, wait, let's talk about behavior right now. Well, they're fine. But it's with me that they're okay.
So,
Questions, go ahead, please.
Mm-hmm. My son, I mean, his teacher does have a hard time with him in school.
Yes.
And he has gone to the principal.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's like, we have a thing, me and him, and then he also has his own thing he's expressing at school. So, I mean, I know that's what we're working on.
Well, we're working on that. And here's the thing. And this is kind of, I want you to think about this. That if you cannot get your child to pay attention to you at home, your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 5-year-old, if you haven't created the circumstances or been authoritative enough, not authoritarian, authoritative, if your child doesn't pay attention to you, is it logical to think that he may go to school and possibly not pay attention to teachers? Because he hasn't been expected to pay attention at home. Because parents today, including what I was doing, I was hoping my son would pay attention. I was cajoling. I was using humor. I was explaining myself all the time. I was trying to reason with him because that felt like the right thing. It felt very loving and compassionate and kind. But it was really exhausting him. And he was still having meltdowns. He was miserable. So I know that this switch is very simple, by the way, but I also know it's very hard because it's a leap of faith into, quite frankly, a little more traditional parenting. Some people hate that word. But traditional really is not because I said so. You don't have to say that. But traditional is pretty calm and pretty clear. It's like, hey, You need to turn the TV off now. I don't want to. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of things I don't want to do, but it's off. And then a parent, you know, I recommend that parents, oh, why can't you watch TV the next day? Oh, because yesterday at 2 o'clock, when I told you it was time to turn it off, you threw a shoe at it or whatever. But this is just cause and effect, pretty clear. So, by the way, teachers do not have permission to be authoritative at all today. They don't, because they'll be sued. So they have to just they have to do the same thing. They have to go, hey, Bobby, hey, Hunter, why aren't you paying attention, sweetie? And then they go, oh God, the kids disrupt. Okay, you have to go to the principal. They will get pushback from parents like crazy. So the job is even harder on your shoulders, and it's incumbent upon parents right now to solve this problem. It's not going to be solved with educators. I want to make sure that that is helpful for you. I really go ahead, please. Yes, no, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I have strong boundaries, and I've got a therapeutic team telling me I'm too strict because she needs strong boundaries.
Correct.
And if I tell her no, there's sometimes violence and property destruction. My biggest problem is keeping my own temper.
Okay, well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
ahead. Any suggestions for that?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you for being honest. I think that is probably in the top 2 for the parents that I coach, not all, but many, that losing their temper. And when you haven't been given a clear path, right? There's so many different ways to do this. There was a time it was pretty clear, you know, how to it's pretty simple. Parents weren't on a webinar. Well, they weren't on a webinar years ago anyway, but they were never asking someone, how do I stop a tantrum? Kids stopped tantrum, by the way. About 60 years ago, kids stopped throwing tantrums by the time they were 3. They weren't all beaten mercilessly, by the way. They just had parents who communicated effectively, parents who had permission to do that. So with anger, I mean, I do suggest outside, you know, I do suggest that parents go to outside support groups if they need it, or therapy, and that you find other parents to reach out to. You know, the most important thing is to stay calm. It really is. And it's hard, especially if you have a teenager who is, you know, really challenging. And I know that's an understatement. And I know your situation, you know, one thing I can tell you for sure, now this is an outside program, but there's a program called Al-Anon. And that deals with, if some people go there, they have a relative or friend who deals with addiction. There's adult children of alcoholics. That's not my area. But I do have clients who go to those programs because they have challenging children. And they'll go to an Al-Anon program if they resonate with that message. But those are great programs that talk about boundaries. There's lots of I mean, I help parents to have those boundaries, but I'm one piece of a puzzle. And I think when you're dealing with very challenging situations, that you need a lot of support to not lose your temper. And I will say that parents who have, I do have a family where the father got extremely angry, big anger issues. And it was made very clear to him that there would be no movement forward until he learned to manage his temper. And he had to work very, very hard. He did join a men's support group. He had people on speed dial he could call. And the child, who at that time was a teenager, started to respond because there was nothing to fight against. And so it did start with the father. You know, I've heard someone say it starts with, you know, mom in the mirror. And that's a very important piece. Anything else? Any other questions? I will say that there are some, I will make suggestions, and I want to say that this way of parenting with being afraid to give a consequence or afraid to send a child, let's say, to their room, there is a lot of fear about that. And some parents are unwilling to do that. They will come to me and say, my kid's having a meltdown, or my 14-year-old is throwing things. And I will say, all right, let's do X and Y and Z. So as some of you know, how I work with parents is for the first week, we just practice you getting very calm, learning how to say things one time instead of nagging. So I like to get mom very relaxed. You know, sometimes it takes a team of people to do that. But I try to, that's what my goal is in the first week, right? Those of you who know that I'm going to say, let's just work on saying, I want you to, I expect you to, I need you to. Take the notch down in the house, very relaxed, be very relaxed. All right. And then I will suggest to parents, that they give a meaningful consequence. Let's say they have a child that really needs a wake-up call, not a beating, a wake-up call with a powerful, meaningful consequence. Because a consequence does have to be meaningful for the child to want to change their behavior. Only the child can do that, right? You can't control your kids, you've tried. Some parents they are unwilling. They'll say, I can't. And I respect that. But I do tell parents, you try it one time. Try one time. Being willing for some things to get worse before better, because they will get worse before better. But try it once where you're abandoning this way of, the way of parenting that hasn't been helping us parents for a long time. And that way is getting down to their level and, hey, sweetie, I know you're upset. You can't really, I know you're upset. Please don't throw that. Please go over here. Please, this is, kids just, their eyes go in the back of their heads. It just glaze over. But when a parent's willing to say, to be authoritative and you watch what happens, you have to experience that. You have to experience that one time where you say, oh my gosh, my child is changing. They're not having as many meltdowns, or they're not having any, hardly at all. And I didn't beg them or bribe them or do some fancy method or come up with a perfect consequence. I didn't do that. I just made it perfectly clear that wasn't going to be tolerated anymore. I feel like I'm just, so please jump in, please. Questions from anyone in the chat here? Some people I've never met before. For some of you, in the beginning of this, talking about the tantrum place, you're going to get this. You're understanding this. For some of you, say, oh my gosh, I'm going to create a tantrum place, and I'm going to take my toddler there every time they start to have a meltdown to their little rug or in the bathroom where there's carpet, and say, your tantrums are so big and you're so loud, you have a big, beautiful voice, that you need a special place for your tantrum. And I'm going to, some of you who have little ones, because you have to take them there maybe 30 times the first time. Maybe it's going to be a half an hour. You have to be calm. So you take them back. You don't say, you need to stay here. I told you, you just calmly take them back. You're like, it doesn't bother you. They're your sweet little angel. You're going to take them back. And then watch what's going to happen. They're going to start to understand that's where they go to be upset. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't scream, yell, threaten, bribe. You didn't do any of that. Reason with them. You can't reason with a child, by the way. You can give them a reason. You can't reason with them. So you keep taking, so some of you will get that. Just great. You have a child 3 or over. Take them to the tantrum place. Say, I expect you to go to your tantrum place now. I don't want to go. I understand, but I expect you to go. Well, I'm not going. All right. Then 6 o'clock, they want to watch something on TV. That's when you get to say, well, can I watch? Oh, no. Why not? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Because today when you were yelling and I told you to go to your tantrum place, you didn't go. And that's the way it's going to be from now on. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I was calm, loving. I just made it perfectly clear. And that's what I'm trying to help parents do. This isn't rocket science, but it's become very complicated. And it's not your fault. It wasn't my fault. And if so, go ahead, please, go ahead.
And for children that don't stop tantruming in their tantrum place.
They don't stop tantruming. All right. So you can let them, you can let them go for a long time, and you make it clear there's no breaking anything. And for some of you, by the way, that have questions that you might not be comfortable asking, or you can please go ahead and book a half hour with me, please. I'm here to be of service to you. So you see my Calendly link, you can go ahead and book a call. But to answer that, so you have a little one who just keeps going. How long do the tantrums go?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he can go all day. But
All right.
I'm mostly for other people, because if I go in and I say, are you done? Are you ready to come out? He goes, yes. And he comes out and he's fine.
Okay. So thank you for being so thoughtful and asking that for other people. So this can take, as I said, worse before better. This can take a little bit of time, because why it can take a little bit of time, it depends on how it's executed by the parent. So if you're engaging with your kid while they're in the tantrum place and talking to them, or telling them they say, can I come out now? And they're still screaming, you can say you need to stay in your tantrum place. But I'm done. I think you have more tantrum in you. So this is not a science in terms of how to give you exactly the words. This is really about your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. So I can give you the specifics, but I want parents to know it's about your expectations when you are in with the family. I expect you're going to control your tantrum. And if you can't, you're going to go to the tantrum place. Boy, I've had clients where their kids will stay in the tantrum place for an hour.
Wow.
And because they're in the habit. They're in the habit of melting down for 2 hours till mom gives in finally. See, if you have a child that's melting down and you after an hour go, okay, enough, you can have it. You've just told them. You've just bought yourself 20 more times of that kind of a meltdown, by the way. Mm-hmm. So that emanates from the parent. I'm not saying there's not difficult kids. Of course, your kids have minds of their own. Some of you have well-behaved kids that you just say, excuse me, and they go, uh-huh. Some of you, you're like, okay, coach, I'm on. And then you have kids that are just, hey, they're going to grow up to be, successful lawyers, or, or just run a really good scout troop. I don't know. They're going to be great leaders. So you have great kids. They're amazing. So you have to be patient with them and know that this started with you. It's not your fault. You're going to have kids that are they're used to it. They're in the habit. So for those of you who don't know me, I coach, everything is about habits. It's not about a deep issue that you're digging for. Why is my kid screaming? What's wrong? I mean, if we looked at that list I showed you, it said, call the doctor if your kid throws a long tantrum. Okay, well, I'm not telling you not to call the doctor. Maybe you should, I don't know, but at least try something else before calling the doctor if there's something that might work, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the doctor gonna do? Well, you tell me, what's the doctor gonna do, ladies?
Prescribe something.
He's going to give you an anti-anxiety medication, because moms are the #1 consumer, I think, from my last look at anti-anxiety medication. Hello. So he's going to medicate one or both. I don't know. But again, that's not my specific area. But I mean, it's all about habits. Your kid's been allowed to break furniture, and they're in the habit. If you get angry and your kid gets angry back, you're in the habit of doing this dance. even if there are psychological issues, which sure there could be, you still have to draw boundaries. I have clients where their kid has a diagnosis of X or Y or Z, and they still have to get them off the table and stop throwing furniture against the wall. What do? You have to have boundaries. That's what's missing. That is what's missing, is there's no boundaries today. There's no emotional boundaries. So there's a lot of codependency. There's no physical boundaries. That's why kids are sleeping in their parents' beds. So how do you expect your kid to pay attention to you? And there's nothing wrong with your child sleeping in your bed sometimes. So, doesn't preclude, everything I say doesn't preclude you getting on the floor and playing with your child. And it's just that when it's 24/7. So those tantrums, by the way, when your kids know where you stand. So look, I love this image. When your kids know exactly where you stand, they know where they stand. If you're moving the boundary, they don't know where they're standing. They don't know. But when you just hold the boundary, I don't mean like my way or the highway, but when you're relaxed, oh, you can stay in there for as long as you want. Oh no, you need to stay in your tantrum place when you're yelling. Oh, here's a cup of water because your throat could get a little sore. I have my own tantrum place too. Yeah, in the car sometimes when I'm driving back from Trader Joe's, I yell. Makes me feel good, but you're too young to be in the car driving. So this is your tantrum place. And when you hold that, whether you have a teenager, you hold a boundary, a little one, you hold a boundary, then your child gets the message that, oh, whew, I guess that's the way it is. Questions? You're so quiet. So quiet. Ready? Let's see who's here. I have people listening here. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything I might be able to say that might be useful to you. Because I could go on for hours because I love talking about this. What I really love is helping moms stay relaxed. And there's nothing better than a mom saying, oh my gosh, my child followed my directions the first time. I didn't scream or yell. Or hearing a mom say, wow, I'm really anxious because I'm doing the tantrum place, but he's still tantruming. It can take 4 to 6 weeks sometimes, depending on the behavior, for a behavior to get under control. It can sometimes take that long. Why? Because you've been doing it a certain way for a long time. So it's not going to turn around in a day. But sometimes, believe it or not, I have parents say, oh my gosh, that leadership speech, I went into my son's room and said, I expect you to put your pants on right now. And I'll be back to see that you've done it. I walked away, came back, their pants were on. What was that? It was you telling your child what you wanted them to do. You didn't walk in and go, hey, how you doing? And are you ready to put your pants on? I know you don't feel like going to school. I know you don't have to go to school today if you don't want to. They don't. So generally speaking, if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, they turn right around. They're very resilient, right?
What's your advice if you're out at the store and they
if you're what?
tantruming? If you're like at a store and they start throwing a tantrum or.
All right. So what I love, as I said, this is really about your presentation, your expectations. It's about a point of view as a parent, right? And I don't want that to be abstract for people. What I mean by that is a point of view, meaning you have permission to tell your children what to do. I ask parents, well, actually, this is a great question John Rosemond asked, parenting expert John Rosemond, he'll ask parents, well, do you think that your daughter should tell you what to do? Sometimes that's like, oh, no, I don't. Okay, great. Then we're on the same page. So So when you have the point of view that, oh, it's all right for me to tell my child what to do. I'm not squishing their spirit and all of that. And I'm have permission now to know that I should step into an authoritative place. All right. So you make your expectations clear. You say, we're going to the store now. So this is for if you have a child 3 and up, right? 3 and up. Under that, you can only contain, right? I talked about that. So 3 and up, let's say you have a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, you say, we're going into the store and I expect you to stay right by my side. Now, you're just going to communicate effectively. Now, you can also, there's a great thing called the ticket system, which I love. I love this. This is also from parenting expert John Rosemond. And I used it, and it was just fantastic. But again, it's not the method itself. It's you, mom, executing the method well. So the ticket system is so great that you say to your kid, all right, you have 3 tickets or whatever the number is, 3 to 5, and I'm going to hold on to these tickets. And so they get a few chances to misbehave, if you will, because kids have to be able to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Just like we have to be able to make mistakes. So they get a few chances, but the method is with a ticket system. And so when a kid misbehaves or runs, oh, so, saying you moved away from me in the store and I'm taking a ticket now. And that's just a method that the child is aware of. You're not saying, oh, you have 3 more, you have 2 more. That can make a kid anxious. So, and you just say, oh, or mommy, kid runs off and you go and get him. Oh, you ran away from me again. I'm taking another ticket. And then you get back to the car, and if they had 1 ticket left, that's great. They don't get a party, you're not celebrating. You can say, I'm really proud of you. So, but there's ways to do that. It's really about making your expectations clear, or being willing, we talked about that plan B here, being willing to leave the store. And not being mean or cruel or saying, I told you we're not, none of that. You have to stay calm. It doesn't mean you're not teaching your child, but you don't shame them, or you don't have to do any of that. And that's really what we've got from in the late 60s, early 70s, all of that, all of the psychologists that have come in and said, you don't have to shame your kids. And that is so important. And you don't have to belittle or do any of that. You just educate. Say, oh, we're leaving the store. Why? Oh, because you had a tantrum in the store. So we're going home. But what about that toy? No, we could try again another time now. And there's times that you give a consequence. There's times that you give a talking to. So, but it's really, really, Becky, about so your kids know what's expected of them. Yeah, and they're kids, so they're gonna do that sometimes. They're gonna have meltdowns.
Yeah,
right?
I guess it just takes practice.
By the way, it's just what you said. It is a practice. Sometimes I'll have parents do it. Sometimes I said parents do a dry run.
Yeah.
Practice. So they'll practice. They'll take their kids to the store. The stakes aren't high. It's not like they have to cook dinner and hurry up and they're not anxious. They go, let's practice. Yeah. Today you're going to take your kids to the store.
There'll be a few store runs that'll be a nightmare, and then they'll eventually learn. So
right now, you're just practicing what we're working on right now. Your communication right now, and that'll come around the corner. Well, you'll take them to the store, and what happens is it's really amazing to watch. And it's your kids, again, they have minds of their own, but when you make your expectations clear and you know how to give a meaningful consequence when you need one. So today, a lot of parents will take away an iPhone for an hour, right? Or you don't get to watch that show when a child, let's say, kicked a parent. Well, that's not going to help your child to stop that behavior. That's like, as John Rosemond says, I think it's John who says, it's like stopping an elephant with a fly swatter. So, any other questions? I didn't have an end time, by the way, so feel free to go at any time. I just try to stay on for about 30 minutes afterwards and answer any questions if you have them. And anything besides the tantrum place, anything at all. Let's see.
Thank you. I got to go. I have work to do, but thank you, Catherine.
It's so nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Keep sending me the links and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, hang in there. I know
All
that
right.
doesn't mean hang in there. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, the good news is I know a lot of you have little kids. And that's such good news that you're taking responsibility for your parenting in a powerful way. Now, it's very hard when you have older kids, right? It just gets harder. So I know that from personal experience and from some of my clients, where you're right now, if you have a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, it may feel like, ugh. But some of you have made those connections already, where you've seen, wow, I'm not hovering over my kid. They know exactly where I stand and what's expected. They know that they're not going to get X or Y when they do this or this.
Hi, Coach K, it's Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I haven't been able to jump on much because I'm just kids all around me, putting them to bed and whatnot. But
Yes.
I just want to say the whole just becoming more relaxed and getting the monkey off your back and it just putting it back on theirs, is really helpful to help me calm down, a lot. And I think that other mom, I think she had to leave, but that was really helpful when you don't take on their problems, because it's not your problem, it's their problem. And just the confidence, that you get from, and relaxedness that you get from not taking that on and, giving it back to them. And, that was helpful.
Thank you. And for some of you who don't know, and I'll just give some reference point here, that there's a lot of enabling and codependency parenting today, where my child's issues are my issues, and yes, let me be very specific about that with an example. If a child, let's say, is hitting his mom, I'll give you a personal example. When my son was 4, he was hitting me when he didn't get what he wanted, and I tried everything. And I remember picking him up late from somewhere, and his grandma's, and he hit me. And I immediately blamed myself, because I thought, oh my gosh, I was late. He's tired. He hit me. I didn't really know who to correct. And this was a problem, because that wasn't helpful for him. I mean, I thought it was, oh my gosh, I did something. Now, when I got clear that, wait a second, I may have been late, maybe I have to work on that, but that's no excuse for my 4-year-old whacking his mom. So what Mary is saying is that putting the problem where the problem lies, which is rightfully with the child, because only the child can solve the problem. And that goes for many things. That goes for homework. A lot of parents feel today that it's my responsibility to make sure my kid does all their work. Well, it's your responsibility to create circumstances for your child to pay attention. You have a nice workspace. You make sure it's quiet for your child. You make a time that your kids are expected to do the work. But it's not your job to get the A for your child, or to solve the problem. So when you put the problem where it should be with your child, watch what happens. That's what Mary is saying, that when she relaxed, I went, wow, you know what? Why am I so anxious about my kid's tantrum? Why am I so anxious about my son not paying attention? Because there was a lot of anxiety that I should solve this, I should fix this. And that anxiety is not helpful. So all of a sudden, she practiced relaxing and saying to her children, okay, let's give an example of a tantrum. You need to stay here. I'm sorry you're upset. I'm going to go off and make some dinner for us. She's relaxed. And then the child got to see, oh, this is really mine to solve. Not intellectually, they're not thinking that, but it's theirs to solve. So the monkey needs to be on the child's back. And that can feel painful for a parent, especially if you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to solve everything. I have to have my child happy all the time and they're sad. So that's what she means. I hope that's clear. It took me a long time, by the way, to understand this, because I was really emotional as a parent and really anxious. And I didn't know how to let my child have that problem, because I really felt like it was mine to solve and I should fix it. But I realized, no, I have to create the circumstance by having good boundaries. So my child can decide, oh, I'm not going to hit my mom anymore. So if you have questions about that, you can schedule a time if you want. So anybody else have a question about that, what I just said? At all? Okay.
I don't, but in reference to the homework thing, I wanted to tell you, because I haven't had time to email you, but I got a good report from my daughter's school that she's doing better in class.
Okay.
That's all because we put the monkey on her back with homework.
Good.
She's more invested and taking control of her own destiny.
Well, you did that. So that emanated from you, Mom, right? And I have to say that, there's not a guarantee, right? Because it could have happened that she didn't take control, right?
Right.
So I need parents to hear that there's no guarantee your child has a mind of her own or his own, of their own. You have to know. So, but there is no shot at when you have a parent that's anxious, understandably so, and there's a lot of anxiety right now. The COVID, there's not in-person school, a lot of anxiety about, is my kid learning? So it's understandable and perfectly normal to have that anxiety. So to come in and say, all right, let's know that that's there. And let's send your kid the message, because what I'm trying to do, and what you're trying to do is you want your kids to know they're capable. Mm-hmm. But if we're unwittingly sending the message like, oh my gosh, you have to be on Zoom school, you're not paying attention, you might have to redo the 3rd grade. And if that anxiety is there, well, they pick up on that.
Yeah. And
I know it's hard to just, what's like act relax. So there's that point of view of, wait a second, let me get some perspective here. My kid's 8 or even 9. They're not in college. They're not in the SAT. Let me get some perspective. Yeah. Let's start there. So right. you got some perspective. You kind of got a grip in a nice way, right?
Yeah.
And backed off. And I really give you the props, because I know, well, I know, I'll say I know. That wasn't so easy for you. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, but it is easier and the results are better. So
right.
Now I would get home from school with them, and then like my whole evening seemed so tense about homework and not having enough time to do dinner and everything. But when I just put it on her, the afternoons are like really peaceful, and it's working because I'm getting better reports from her teachers.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And that is you. That the credit goes, well, you can give some to your daughter, right? But I think really your willingness to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance here. It feels uncomfortable because I want to manage that. I want to control that. I'm afraid that the report's not going to be good, or I may have pressure from a spouse or from a teacher, right? Or my own upbringing, all that stuff comes in. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Right? Yeah. I don't know about you, but with me, there's a lot of stuff. So, and with most of the moms that I'm coaching, it's just, hey, let's Watch what happens when you relax. I mean, and when you can connect that, you have one time and you say, oh my gosh, wow, let me see where else I can relax. And then if it comes up, because there are going to be times when kids, they're going to behave well for a while, and then they're going to test you. They're going to do well in school for a while, and then they may just go, I don't want to. And then what are you going to do? Well, you're going to panic. Or you're going to say, oh, okay, let me get some perspective here. What is the mission I have for my house? And I'll just briefly talk for just 30 seconds about that. What do I want for my kids? I want them to be relaxed. I want them to know they're capable. I want them to know they can make mistakes. I want them to be resilient. What is the message I ultimately want to send to them? That, you know what? It's okay. And I know that you're going to solve that. And I'm going to help you. I'm here to support you. If you need any help, come ask me. And part of my work with parents is to get them to know, and I know you can speak to this, between the difference between wanting help and needing help.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with homework and even with the tantrum place. Mommy, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. Because they're in the habit of always jumping. Not you, but generally parents say are jumping. They're in the habit, just the habit. So, where you got to pick those moments of, I'm here, but I'm not going to you. You know what? You can do that. You do the problems that you can do. I know you can do 1 and 2 right there. And I'll come back, see what you've done. Okay. I've had that problem before. I had to do that in school too. You can do it. I know you can. And, it's wonderful. I mean, I love it when moms will say, I felt more relaxed saying this. Like, oh, you can do that. Oh, yeah. I know that you're going to go, oh, you have work to do. I know you're going to go work on your homework. You've had your snack. Now it's time to start your work. I don't want to. Oh, I know there's lots of things I don't want to do, but I know you're going to do that. I have a phone call to take. The child is left to, well, mom's on the phone. I'm not getting that attention, and I'll start my work.
Mm-hmm.
So when we allow them to do that,
Right.
Anybody there? Let's see, a couple of people I've not met before. I've got some new people here. Well, thank you for being here. So anyone want to ask a question in the chat? Anybody? Say, and by the way, feel free to go. I'm here till 8:30. Seems to work well for some moms. So I'm just hanging out. Let's see, what would be, I could tell you a bedtime story. Anybody need some real, I'm kidding. All right. Trying to think of a story that, Yes, this is a story about holding a boundary. And I think it's a great story. So for some of you, you can give me the blue hand if you have kids who are, well, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10. So this is a great story from parenting expert John Rosemond, who, for those of you who know, he trained me, and he was the last parenting expert I was ever going to go to on earth, by the way. All right. He was the last kind of person. Just not when I was pregnant, it was been the last parenting expert, but he turned out to be one of the best. And he tells this great story that when his grandchildren, his 2 grandkids, I guess they were 4 and 5 at the time, they were staying with him and his wife, and they were used to calling the shots at dinner. John, if you're hearing this, I'm paraphrasing it badly. But they were used to calling the shots, and they would get what they wanted to eat for dinner, and they would complain and end up maybe sometimes having cereal, because I know a lot of my parents, like, you don't want to have that vegetable, okay, and we're afraid our kids are going to starve. So, okay, you can have cereal in bed. Here you go. So, and generally, breakfast and lunch is great for kids to choose. And dinner time is really the family meal. Dinner is about raising a good citizen, which I'm not going to go off on that right now. But so the kids came, and John took a lot of pride in making spaghetti sauce from scratch. And so he served the meal, and he had the two grandkids, Johnny and Adam. And Adam was the little one. He was 5, and he says, I don't want to have, okay, I don't, oh, I'll get back to you. That there's actually excuse me for just a moment. I'll give you, let me see. Oops, sorry about that, everyone. So let me pick up. I will put that in the chat for you. All right. Can you see me still? Here we go. Okay. So one of the kids says, I don't eat spaghetti with sauce. And John said, now John knew that the kids didn't, allergies are different, by the way. I'm not telling you give your kids something they're allergic to or give them cilantro when they hate it. That's not what I'm saying. So, but this is about expectations and being an example and raising a good dinner guest, if you will. So John says, well, listen, my child, you don't have, you can leave the table, but this is what's for dinner. He said, I'm not having it. So, well, you can go upstairs and play. So he goes upstairs, and the other brother says, well, he doesn't like sauce. And John says, well, I understand, but in this family, this is a family meal, and we all eat the same thing. Unless you have allergies, and you don't. So about an hour later, the little one comes down, and he sits down with a little face, angry, pouty. He says, I don't want this. And John says, well, you don't have to have it, but that is what's for dinner. And they warmed it up for him, I guess, because that's what I do recommend, that you warm up what's there. And he took all the defiance in this kid. He took the fork, picked it up, and stabbed it into the spaghetti and ate every bite and said, I like it, Grandpa. And there was a time I would have heard that going, well, how terrible. That's such a cruel thing to do to a child. How abusive. But it's such a great example of, you're not forcing a kid to eat, right? You're just saying, this is what's for dinner. And he didn't see, just that's what it was. It was perfectly clear. This is what's for dinner. We eat as a family here. It's a family meal. Family meal. And that child learned a wonderful lesson that night. Really, about being part of the family, anyone at this table, this is what we eat, we're all together. Because a lot of times, that family meal, that kid's separate, right? We all, that kid has the nuggets, or while everyone else is eating the broccoli. And it's not a good message to send, because then that child goes next door or to someone else. Well, I don't want that. You're raising an entitled child. And I know that you don't want to do that. So the messages we get out there are, but understand, be empathetic, but draw a boundary. Well, how do you draw one? Hello? So I hope that was clear. I was trying to remember the story a little bit. But to me, it stayed with me. And I did that with, I do that with, of course, clients. But I remember when my son was little and I was so anxious. I felt so bad because I wanted him to eat. I was such a wreck. And I remember, and I will tell you this because you might be able to relate to this. I coach moms, right? Who's on the call tonight? Do you see one dad, ladies? No. That's why my business is I coach moms and some dads. But I remember I made something that I was very insecure when my son was 4 and I was cooking. I was so tense, okay? So tense. And I have the recipe book, Deceptively Delicious, Seinfeld's wife. And I want to make because I want to be the perfect mom, right? And I made a dish. And my son didn't like it. And all I was doing was beating myself mercilessly. Like I may have missed a beat. I didn't follow direction. And I wanted so badly to just make him some butter pasta that I knew I could make. And I was about to make him something. And my husband said, no, this is what you served. And I wanted to kill my husband and kill myself. That's how I felt. Okay. And I said, okay. So he said, he goes, Catherine. And he said it not in front of my son, but he just looked at me, gave me that look, it's like, that look like, don't be like that, so. And I just calmed down. I was like, okay, I'm acting like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to act like a leader for my son. This is the beginning of all of this parenting. And I sat down and my son started eating. but I was such a wreck. And I don't know if he ate the whole thing or 3 bites, but that wasn't the point. The point is that I wasn't a short order cook. It's not always going to be perfect. You might get it wrong even with a consequence. But when you're authoritative, 95% of the time, you're going to get it right. You are. So in the final time here before, all right, I'm going to put some people want, yes.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
if
yes.
you have time for that.
Yes, I'm going to put something in the chat for you. Go ahead. Yes, yes. Of
Okay.
course I do. I have a few minutes. I have till 8:30. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so someone posted on Instagram and I follow this account, Raising Teens Today, because I just got to be prepared.
Yes, yes, you do.
And
You're not there yet,
so,
but okay, but yes, you do. Okay, go
I
ahead.
was like, look in the future.
Yes, that's
So
okay.
It says, it was like a little meme or just like a little quote, and it says, next time your teen talks back, imagine them standing up to peer pressure, to injustice, to abuse. Practicing small acts of defiance with you now prepares them to have big impact on important issues in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, let me pull back. So can you please read that again to me? I'd like to hear things twice, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it says, next time your teens talk back,
Yes.
imagine them standing up to peer pressure, to injustice, to abuse.
Yes.
Practicing small acts of defiance with you now prepares them to have big impact on important issues in the future.
Yes, I've heard that before. So by the way, that sounds really good, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound pretty good? I think it does. So here's the thing though. That's basically a free pass for your kids to at times be rude. Practicing small acts of defiance. It's very complicated. It's like, you know what? You want your kid to have their voice. Yeah, I let them have their voice. Yeah, they should be able to have their voice. I want to know, especially from a teenager. By the way, that's their job. I want kids to argue with me. Absolutely. But here's the thing. There's a difference between allowing your kid to be rude to you and saying, something, I want you to learn to stand up for yourself and you can do it respectfully. So I agree with you that, I hope I heard it correctly. I agree with you that, yeah, sure, let them, my son can he can say whatever he wants me. He can't be rude. Because that's not going to get him very far in life. I don't want him to be a doormat.
As long as it's like respectful.
Absolutely. I think, and by the way, there's going to be times when teens are going to say things that are not so respectful. Are you going to punish that? Well, you do. There's times you don't punish. I don't ever want parents to walk around punishing everything. And if you've done it right, you're going to raise kids who do speak with you respectfully. But even a teen can, if he hears you dropping an F-bomb or something, can do that, right? Do you punish that? Well, I don't want parents to be punishing everything. That's not the way to do things. But in answer to your question, I think absolutely that, yes, I want my son to be able to have his voice and to say, and my and daughters, absolutely. I want you. That's why I will say to parents, I want to help you raise kids who have their own voices, but do what you tell them to do, not because you're a control freak, because you are the parent, you are the authority. And if you unconditionally love your children, which I know you do, then you can expect them to follow your directions and expect them to do what they're told. But they can have they can differ. They are absolutely free to disagree, but they're not free to disobey. And I know some people don't even like the word obey. I don't know either sometimes. It's like, oh, it's so old school, or not, whatever word you want. It's like if you have a teenager 15 years old, you expect them to take out the trash and you've made that clear, your expectations, and they do it, you have a chore chart up, whatever it is, or, your kid can say, I don't want to do it today, or, you know what, I don't think I should be taking the trash out anymore. I think my sister should be doing it and I'm sick of it. And okay, I want my son, daughter to be able to express themselves and feel comfortable and safe with me to do that. And I want to hear that. Absolutely. I say, absolutely, I hear you. Yep, I would feel the same way too. I'm happy to revisit that, especially with a teenager, right? It's different. You don't have a little one, right? Up an 8-year-old, you're not going to do that with necessarily, but there are exceptions. But with a teenager, sure, you say, yeah, we can revisit that. Sure, you want to do something else, another chore. But right now, It's your day to take down the barrels. And I expect you to do that. And then just walk away and make yourself a latte. All right. Was that helpful? I'm going to put my email here. So if you, and I will send you a link. Because actually I'm having trouble pulling up my link here. Here we go. If you have any questions or you want, what does this say? I wanted to know if you offer regular parenting support, and if so, how would we go about contacting you? Yes, I do. That's what I do. I coach moms. So my email is coach@icoachmoms.com. And if you want to go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll send you the link and you can book a time. That would be the best thing to do. And let's see. Well, you're wonderful parents. I know that. And tired parents. So in my last 3 minutes, anyone have a burning desire question? Thank you for your patience. For those of you that didn't get the link, you're welcome, that didn't get the link right away. Boy, it's not easy to make mistakes, is it? Not easy sometimes. And I've made quite a few with learning technical stuff, and even hiring somebody to help me, and still having a little trouble. So working out some of the kinks, but that's not to do with anything to do with you, other than to say that as parents, we get to make mistakes in front of our children and turn things around at any time. Because if you have a child living under your roof, by the way, it is never too late to change course, ever. It's not too late. Sometimes it's the most loving thing to do. And yep. Okay, so thank you, Becky. Thank you, Heloise. Thank you, Riley. And Sabrina. It's nice thank you for being here. Thank you for Savannah. I get so moved just having you here. And for those of you who are doing such a great job raising your kids, and so fantastic. So fantastic. So I hope that one of the things I like, I know it's going to sound kind of silly, but I do tell parents to say out loud, hey, good job. Put your name there. I am proud of me. And if you believe in a greater power, you say that that's more the greater power success than mine. I like that. I heard that somewhere. But I think it's good to acknowledge yourself. So I'm going to just take a moment to acknowledge you for being here, for the great job that you're doing. Some of you are having a very difficult time, and you've made the commitment to change course, and you're going to see wonderful things, because you get out what you put in, you're going to get out. So that's just the way it works. So have a great night. Have a happy holiday. And
Thank you.
thank you. Good night.
Right.